In today's media-driven world, the responsibility of public figures, commentators, and journalists has never been greater, yet it often feels more neglected than ever before. The story of Roland Martin checking Stephen A. Smith over his commentary about Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett serves as a powerful example of this dynamic at play. It highlights how easily a person with a large platform can influence public opinion and how dangerously simple it is for that influence to cross the line between responsible critique and reckless misrepresentation. When Stephen A. Smith spoke about Jasmine Crockett, his words didn't just travel, they multiplied, echoed, and took on a life of their own across social media. Millions of people heard his take before they ever heard the truth. And that is where media responsibility comes into question, when speed, emotion, and ego overpower accuracy, research, and respect. Roland Martin's response wasn't just about defending Crockett, it was a stand for factual accountability in a time when opinion often masquerades as truth. Public commentary has evolved from informed journalism into performance-driven punditry, where charisma and controversy attract more attention than integrity and understanding. Stephen A. Smith is known for his fiery takes in sports, but when that energy crosses into political or social territory, the consequences shift. Politics and governance require depth, nuance, and historical context. When those are missing, the audience is left with a distorted image, not of the issue, but of the person being discussed. In this case, Jasmine Crockett, a passionate, articulate, and informed Congresswoman, became the subject of unfair character framing rather than a focus on her message or the context of her remarks. Roland Martin stepped in because he understood that silence in such moments only allows misinformation to spread unchecked. Media figures with large audiences must understand that their words are not just commentary, they become part of public record, shaping how citizens perceive leadership, justice, and truth. The rise of social media has further blurred the line between journalism and entertainment. What once required a newsroom, research, and editorial review can now be broadcast instantly from a smartphone. This accessibility has empowered voices but also weakened standards. Anyone with confidence and a microphone can become a commentator, regardless of their grasp on the facts. When Stephen A. Smith's commentary went viral, many viewers took it as fact because of his fame and assertive delivery. But confidence does not equal correctness. Roland Martin's rebuttal was more than a disagreement, it was a reminder that having a platform means carrying a duty to verify, to question, and to avoid carelessly damaging reputations. In Martin's response, he underscored a crucial principle: influence demands discipline. Media misrepresentation doesn't always come from malice. Often, it stems from laziness or ignorance. But the impact is the same. When someone like Stephen A. Smith criticizes a congresswoman without full understanding or context, it perpetuates a cycle where audiences learn to distrust or disrespect public officials, especially those who are outspoken, progressive, or unapologetically assertive. Jasmine Crockett, as a black woman in Congress, already faces the double weight of racial and gender bias. When a high-profile media personality mischaracterizes her actions or tone, it feeds into stereotypes that women, particularly women of color, are angry, disrespectful, or out of line, simply for expressing strong opinions. Roland Martin recognized this and refused to let it slide. His defense wasn't about favoritism, it was about fairness. It was about demanding that conversations about black leaders, especially black women, be held with respect and accuracy, not distortion and performative outrage. The broader issue at hand is the erosion of journalistic ethics in the age of opinion dominance. News used to be a place for facts, now, it's often a stage for personality battles. Viewers tune in not to be informed but to be entertained. Yet, entertainment built on misinformation can be toxic. The danger lies in repetition. When a false or skewed narrative is repeated enough times, it becomes accepted as truth. Stephen A. Smith's opinion reached millions, but only a fraction of those people may have seen Roland Martin's factual correction. That imbalance reveals why responsible media voices must not only speak out but do so loudly and consistently. Because silence leaves space for falsehood to take root and grow unchecked. In moments like these, the credibility of media itself is on trial. When someone with Stephen A. Smith's platform speaks without full context, it doesn't just misrepresent one congresswoman, it erodes trust in journalism as a whole. People begin to believe that all media is biased, unreliable, or self-serving. That skepticism then spills into politics, creating apathy among citizens who no longer know who or what to trust. Roland Martin's insistence on clarity and truth isn't about winning an argument, it's about restoring faith in the idea that facts still matter. His willingness to challenge a peer on a public stage is a call for others to do the same, to prioritize accuracy over popularity, education over entertainment, and truth over clicks. Media responsibility also extends beyond the initial moment of commentary. It includes the willingness to admit when one is wrong, to retract statements, and to learn from mistakes. Too often, influential commentators double down when confronted, afraid that acknowledging error will weaken their image. But true credibility is built on humility, not arrogance. When Roland Martin corrected Stephen A. Smith, he did so not to humiliate him but to highlight the need for intellectual rigor. He reminded everyone watching that the role of a commentator isn't to be loud, it's to be right. The audience deserves informed perspectives, not careless soundbites delivered for viral reactions. And when misinformation is spread, it must be corrected publicly, with the same energy and visibility as the original statement. This moment between Roland Martin and Stephen A. Smith exposes how fragile the balance between opinion and information has become. It shows how easy it is for influential voices to drift into dangerous territory when their commentary is not backed by facts. The media has immense power, it can elevate or destroy, enlighten or mislead. And that power carries moral weight. Every broadcast, every podcast, every tweet contributes to shaping collective understanding. When used responsibly, media can inspire, educate, and empower. When abused, it can misinform, divide, and damage reputations unjustly. Roland Martin's stand was a necessary pushback against the latter. It wasn't about censorship or silencing differing opinions, it was about reminding those with microphones that speech has consequences, and truth must always come before theatrics. The lesson from this exchange is clear: the louder the platform, the deeper the responsibility to use it wisely and truthfully. Accountability and integrity in public dialogue are the cornerstones of any healthy society, yet they are often the first casualties when personal opinions, emotions, or egos take center stage. The heated exchange between Roland Martin and Stephen A. Smith over comments made about Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett highlights a growing concern in modern media: the erosion of accountability among those who hold influence over millions of viewers. When powerful voices speak on public platforms, their words carry weight far beyond the moment they are uttered. They shape perceptions, influence discourse, and can even alter the reputations of those they discuss. This is why accountability must never be optional, and integrity must never be negotiable. Roland Martin's response to Stephen A. Smith wasn't merely about defending one person, it was about defending the integrity of truth and demanding that those with microphones remember the responsibility that comes with them. In the digital era, information moves faster than fact-checking, and opinions often replace research. Commentators, journalists, and influencers find themselves rewarded not for accuracy but for engagement. Clicks, likes, and shares have become the new measures of success. In this environment, integrity can easily be sacrificed for virality. Stephen A. Smith, celebrated for his dynamic commentary in sports media, crossed into political commentary with the same fiery delivery, but without the same grounding in factual precision. His remarks about Jasmine Crockett reflected a surface-level understanding of the issue, yet because of his reputation, those words spread as if they carried the authority of truth. Roland Martin's intervention was an act of restoring accountability, not to attack, but to remind. He reminded audiences and fellow media professionals that when you occupy a large platform, you owe it to the public to speak from a place of informed integrity, not assumption or performance. Integrity means doing the right thing even when no one is watching, but accountability means standing by your words when everyone is. Public dialogue is built on trust, and when that trust is broken, it doesn't just damage one conversation, it weakens the entire fabric of civic discourse. The way Stephen A. Smith spoke about Jasmine Crockett showed a lack of context, an absence of diligence, and a failure to recognize the impact of his voice on public perception. Roland Martin's response demanded that this be addressed openly. He wasn't just calling out one man, he was calling out a culture that rewards volume over value, emotion over evidence, and charisma over character. When commentators choose to speak about politics or social issues, they are no longer entertainers, they become educators in the eyes of their audience, whether they intend to or not. With that shift comes a duty to ensure that every opinion is grounded in truth. Accountability in media isn't about silencing opinions, it's about ensuring that opinions are responsible. The public relies on commentators and journalists to guide understanding, not to distort it. When a narrative is shaped carelessly, it can cause lasting harm. In this instance, the harm wasn't only to Congresswoman Crockett's personal image but to the larger narrative surrounding women in politics, particularly women of color. The implication that she was unprofessional or overly emotional wasn't new. It echoed centuries of biased portrayals that have tried to silence strong women by questioning their tone instead of addressing their truth. By challenging Stephen A. Smith, Roland Martin was doing more than defending Crockett, he was defending the standard of fair representation. Accountability means recognizing when commentary crosses into prejudice, even unconsciously, and correcting it before it spreads unchecked. Integrity in public dialogue also means respecting context, understanding not just what was said, but why it was said. Politicians like Jasmine Crockett operate within high-stakes environments where emotion, frustration, and passion are part of advocating for justice and equality. To criticize a moment without understanding its context is to mislead the audience. Integrity demands the humility to research before reacting, to listen before judging, and to fact-check before broadcasting. Roland Martin demonstrated this integrity by taking the time to understand Crockett's perspective, dissect the issue, and present his rebuttal with facts rather than emotions. That distinction is what separates responsible commentary from reckless opinion. True integrity is about alignment, making sure your voice aligns with your values, your platform aligns with truth, and your influence aligns with the greater good. When accountability fails, misinformation thrives. The modern media ecosystem thrives on outrage, and outrage thrives on exaggeration. When a figure like Stephen A. Smith offers commentary without sufficient background, that commentary becomes fodder for divisive narratives online. Viewers pick sides, social media algorithms amplify conflict, and before long, the original truth is buried under layers of reaction and misinterpretation. This cycle erodes public trust not only in individual commentators but in media as an institution. Accountability, therefore, is not just about correcting mistakes, it's about preventing them through discipline, preparation, and humility. Roland Martin embodies this by holding peers to the same standard he holds himself. His approach reminds audiences that integrity isn't about perfection, it's about the commitment to truth, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. Public figures often underestimate the ripple effect of their words. A single inaccurate or exaggerated statement can turn into a wave of misunderstanding, altering public opinion in ways that are difficult to undo. Accountability requires acknowledging this power and using it responsibly. When Stephen A. Smith made his comments, he may not have intended harm, but intention doesn't erase impact. Roland Martin's firm and factual rebuttal was a lesson in professional integrity. He didn't respond with emotion, he responded with evidence. That is what accountability looks like, addressing misinformation directly, clearly, and publicly. It's not about personal rivalry but about professional duty. In a time when media credibility is constantly under attack, this kind of accountability is essential to rebuilding trust between journalists, commentators, and the public they serve. Integrity also extends to how one handles correction. A true test of character is not whether you make mistakes but how you respond when those mistakes are revealed. In today's culture, where ego often overshadows ethics, few public figures are willing to admit error. Yet integrity demands humility. A responsible commentator must be willing to say, "I was wrong," and then work to repair the damage. This is not weakness, it is strength. Roland Martin's approach exemplifies this belief. He doesn't challenge others for the sake of pride but to preserve the truth. His insistence on accuracy and fairness serves as a model for how public dialogue should function, rooted in fact, guided by principle, and willing to hold even friends accountable when they fall short. The essence of accountability and integrity lies in consistency. It is not enough to be honest when convenient or factual when it supports one's argument. Integrity means applying the same standards to everyone, regardless of personal bias, popularity, or alignment. Roland Martin's willingness to check Stephen A. Smith, a fellow black media figure with immense influence, showed that accountability transcends loyalty. It demonstrated that truth must always come first, even when it challenges someone within your own community. This kind of courage is rare but necessary. It reminds audiences that integrity is not about who you support but about what you stand for. Accountability demands that those with power, whether political, journalistic, or cultural, operate with transparency, accuracy, and respect for the public they inform. Empowering truth and respect in political discourse has become one of the most urgent challenges of our time, especially in an era when noise often drowns out nuance and emotion overshadows evidence. The heated exchange between Roland Martin and Stephen A. Smith over comments directed at Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett serves as a vivid illustration of this struggle, a battle not just between two media figures but between two approaches to truth. One prioritizes understanding and context, the other prioritizes volume and reaction. The controversy revealed how political conversations in today's media landscape are too often shaped by personality-driven narratives rather than by principles of respect, research, and responsibility. Roland Martin's defense of Jasmine Crockett wasn't only a rebuttal of misinformation, it was a statement on how we must reclaim the integrity of public debate. It was about empowering truth, giving it space to be heard above the chaos, and re-establishing respect as the foundation of every meaningful discussion about politics and leadership. Truth in political dialogue is not simply about stating facts, it's about presenting those facts within the right context, free from distortion or emotional manipulation. Stephen A. Smith's take on Jasmine Crockett's conduct in Congress may have been passionate, but it lacked depth, nuance, and comprehension of the full picture. His words reflected a larger issue in modern media, where commentators jump to conclusions without fully understanding the institutional pressures, political dynamics, or historical struggles behind an event. When Roland Martin intervened, he did so not to silence opinion but to restore balance. He emphasized that respect for truth means doing the work, listening to the full conversation, analyzing motives, and recognizing that political figures, especially those from marginalized backgrounds, are often unfairly judged by different standards. Jasmine Crockett was not being disrespectful or unprofessional, as Smith suggested, she was being assertive, standing firm in a system that often penalizes women, especially women of color, for refusing to be passive. Empowering truth means making sure that such voices are not dismissed simply because they are unapologetically strong. Respect, too, is at the heart of every healthy democracy. Without it, conversations collapse into shouting matches, and disagreement turns into disdain. Respect doesn't mean avoiding criticism, it means engaging in critique with fairness, empathy, and understanding. Stephen A. Smith's failure to extend that respect toward Jasmine Crockett was symptomatic of a larger societal issue, a tendency to conflate confidence with arrogance and conviction with aggression, especially when it comes from women or people of color. Roland Martin's defense was grounded in respect, not just for Crockett, but for the audience's right to accurate information. His message was clear: political discourse must be built on a foundation where disagreement can coexist with dignity. When commentators attack without context, they weaken the credibility of the conversation itself. When they elevate respect, they strengthen the collective pursuit of truth. Empowering truth also means protecting it from distortion, sensationalism, and selective storytelling. In the age of viral media, truth is constantly at risk of being reshaped to fit emotional narratives or partisan agendas. Politicians' words are clipped, edited, and reframed to provoke outrage rather than understanding. The result is a public that reacts instead of reflects. Roland Martin, through his correction of Stephen Smith, highlighted the need for audiences and commentators alike to slow down, verify information, and resist the temptation to form instant opinions. Truth is not entertainment, it is a responsibility. When media personalities treat it as a tool for engagement rather than enlightenment, they contribute to the erosion of civil discourse. Respect in political dialogue also involves recognizing the humanity of those we discuss. Too often, public figures become caricatures in media narratives, stripped of their complexity and reduced to talking points or memes. This dehumanization makes it easier to attack, mock, or misrepresent them. Jasmine Crockett, like many outspoken political figures, has been on the receiving end of this treatment. Stephen A. Smith's comments, while perhaps not intentionally malicious, contributed to that pattern by framing her actions through a narrow lens of personal opinion rather than professional context. Roland Martin's response restored humanity to the discussion, reminding audiences that politicians are not just symbols or stereotypes, they are individuals driven by conviction, experience, and purpose. Respecting them means acknowledging that complexity and holding commentary to a standard that reflects empathy rather than ego. Empowering truth and respect also means encouraging audiences to think critically. Media consumers must learn to differentiate between informed analysis and performative outrage. When viewers accept unverified opinions as truth, they become complicit in the spread of misinformation. Roland Martin's approach teaches an essential lesson: don't just listen to who's speaking, listen to what's being said, why it's being said, and whether it aligns with evidence. Truth is not determined by volume or popularity but by verification and understanding. The empowerment of truth begins with curiosity, a willingness to question, to fact-check, and to hold even the most influential voices accountable. Roland Martin's correction of Stephen A. Smith was not simply a call-out, it was a call to awareness. It was an invitation for audiences to demand more from those who speak on their behalf. Political discourse thrives when both truth and respect coexist. Without truth, debate becomes manipulation; without respect, it becomes chaos. Together, they create an environment where ideas can be challenged without hostility and where disagreements can lead to growth rather than division. Roland Martin's defense of Jasmine Crockett exemplifies this balance. He challenged misinformation with facts and corrected tone with dignity. He modeled how one can disagree strongly while still maintaining professionalism and composure. This is the kind of discourse democracy depends on, one that values evidence over ego and civility over sensationalism. The moment between Martin and Smith revealed that the real crisis in modern dialogue isn't disagreement, it's the inability to disagree with respect. Empowering truth also requires protecting the credibility of those who speak it. In the political arena, truth-tellers are often vilified, especially when their words challenge power structures or disrupt dominant narratives. Jasmine Crockett represents a new generation of leaders who speak boldly, hold others accountable, and refuse to be silenced. When her truth was misrepresented, Roland Martin's intervention became an act of solidarity. He defended not only her words but the broader principle that truth deserves defenders. Respecting truth means amplifying it, not diluting it for comfort or conformity. It means standing firm even when popular sentiment sways in the opposite direction. Empowering truth requires courage, the courage to stand up to misinformation, to correct even the powerful, and to risk backlash for the sake of integrity. Respect, finally, must extend beyond individuals to encompass institutions. Congress, as flawed as it may be, remains a cornerstone of democratic governance. When commentators speak recklessly about its members or proceedings, they erode public confidence in the system itself. Criticism is essential, but it must be informed, fair, and rooted in reality. Roland Martin's response to Stephen A. Smith was not about protecting politicians from scrutiny, it was about protecting the process from cynicism. When media voices approach politics with respect, for the truth, for the people involved, and for the democratic process, they elevate public understanding instead of diminishing it. True empowerment in political discourse comes when every conversation is guided by the pursuit of truth and the preservation of respect.